In this module, I will describe the two forms of innovation and how to implement them. There are two types of innovation, and both are important and necessary. Many people talk about them and treat them as though they were the same things, but they're not the same in practice, and usually different people are good at the different forms. Leaders need to understand the differences and structure their organizations to accommodate and nurture both forms. The first type of innovation involves breakthrough or revolutionary change. New ideas that change everything, what are often referred to today as game changers. These can be products or practices, a new iPad or a new logistics process. The second type of innovation involves evolutionary change, referred to in Japan as Kaizen. This type of innovation refers to small steps or incremental changes and continuous improvement. This can take many forms, such as TQM, Total Quality Management, Scanlon Plan, Six Sigma, Knowledge Management, or Organizational Learning. The rest of my remarks provide a short summary of issues related to implementing these two forms of innovation. Much of this is adapted from some new materials on innovation being presented by Denning and Dunham in their new book, The Innovator's Way. First, let me start by stating two myths about innovation. The first myth states that innovation is all about the idea. So you focus on creativity and developing new ideas. But invention is not enough. The hardest part of innovation is usually development and implementation of new ideas, not just coming up with new ideas in the first place. Here are some of the components that are necessary for developing new ideas. Sensing. This has to do with recognizing and articulating opportunities and their value. Not all opportunities present the same level of benefit compared to their cost to the organization. There are a number of traditional ways to generate ideas, such as brainstorming and industrial intelligence. But plain old trial and error works as well. The trick is to learn from these, particularly when they lead to mistakes or failures. Taking time for reflection and debriefing on both successes and failures is often the key to learning and creating new ideas. If you don't stop and take the time to reflect and think about what has happened, the opportunity for new ideas may well be lost. Envisioning. This has to do with being able to describe how this innovation might affect the community. It involves weaving vivid, concrete, and compelling stories about what the world will look like with the new ideas and the means for getting there. Offering. This has to do with getting the organization to discuss the new possibilities and modifying the new ideas to fit listener concerns. Part of this involves presenting prototypes to help the community envision the change. For example, 3M's experience with the development of Post-it notes. The creator of the idea sent prototypes around headquarters and found passionate requests for more from secretaries, other office staff, and people working in laboratories. This both proved the acceptance of the concept and showed its huge potential. Breakthrough changes often require that idea generators and inventors need to be separated from the main operations, such as experienced at Xerox with their Park Research Center, at Lockheed with their Skunk Works, and at Apple and IBM with their PC development groups. But eventually, the ideas have to be offered to the rest of the organization and its stakeholders. And lastly, adopting, which has to do with achieving initial commitment to the new product or practice. This involves demonstrating the benefits, dealing with resistance, aligning the new with existing practices, recruiting allies, and developing internal and/or external marketing strategies for all the relevant groups. The second myth about innovation is that it is easy to just make it happen. To which I say, if that were only true. Here are some of the issues that have to be confronted in order to make it happen. Sustaining. This involves getting commitment to stick with the new practice or product and developing the needed infrastructure. Executing involves creating the necessary organizational environment for effectively presenting the new practice or product. Leading or championing the new idea. Peter Drucker used to say that anytime you see anything new being done in an organization, you will find a monomaniac on a mission. But this champion must present his or her new ideas in such a way as to recruit followers and new believers. He or she must present these new possibilities in ways that people will commit to. And lastly, embodying. This is where the new product or practice champion walks the talk and lives and shows the benefits of the new possibilities. As an organization and its leaders begin to understand how to deal with the two myths of innovation, then they can move toward worrying about how to implement innovations and new ideas. I've organized this into 3 steps. First, divide the labor. It takes many different skills and talents to achieve innovation. Identify people who have the various abilities as described above. Second, assemble the dedicated team. The implementation team needs to consist of the people with the many talents needed and who can work with or at least tolerate people with talents different than their own. The members of the team need to have a passion for change and innovation and the skills to make the change work and be adopted. Third, manage the partnerships. Innovations require involving all the various stakeholders. And innovation team leaders need to identify these stakeholders and plan for managing their involvement with the changes required by the new product or practice. To illustrate how this can work in a specific situation, I'd like to describe one of the U.S.'s most creative and innovative grocery store chains, Stu's Dairy Stores. Originally, it specialized only in dairy products and fresh produce. But over time, it has become a full-service grocery store. And much of its success lies in its ability to continually improve its products and services. Let me describe 2 practices that show how this works at Stu's. From the very beginning, and continuing today, Stuart Leonard, the founder of Stu's Dairy, was passionate about doing everything possible to satisfy his customers. One of his values was, and still is, to learn new ideas from anywhere and everywhere. Whenever a new competing grocery store opens up within, say, 20 miles of one of his existing stores, Stu or the local manager will rent a van and take a number of employees to visit the new store. All employees who visit the new store are challenged to identify practices or products that might be copied back home at the Stu's Dairy Store. Employees are challenged to find at least 5 new ideas that can improve their own store and its service to its customers. These ideas can be about any aspect of the new store: layout, products, service, procedures, etc. Over the years, this has led to a constant stream of new ideas for Stu's stores and has enabled them to sustain a business culture of adaptation and improvement. Even more directly related to listening to customers, who are always the best source of new ideas, one of the stories that people like to tell has to do with strawberries. It seems that a number of years ago, the method for selling strawberries was to sell them prepackaged in baskets, just as is the case in most stores today. But one day, when one of Stu's store managers was walking through his store, he overheard a customer complaining about not being able to pick her own strawberries. The manager admits that his reaction was one of, well, we just can't do it that way. That's not the way strawberries come packaged. But then he caught himself saying, but why? Why can't we put the strawberries in a big bin and let customers pick their own out of the pile? So they did. And even though the amount that customers put in a bag to buy was more than they would have otherwise purchased, because they were doing the picking, they never asked to take the bag back or to put some of the strawberries back in the pile. And, maybe surprisingly, strawberry sales increased by more than 300%. It seems giving individual customers the freedom to choose their own strawberries empowered them to spend more than they would have otherwise. The most important and difficult thing for any new idea or training is to ask, how can I apply this idea or these ideas? I hope you are asking this question right now. Having new ideas and innovations is necessary, but studies and experience show that the really hard challenge is implementing those new ideas. There are always many barriers to change. So let me close with the following. Bit by bit, the attitude that uniformity is an ideal state for anything important and is also desirable for big ideas, creativity, teamwork, or inspiration. This idea is falling away. We need today to be hiring more and more out-of-the-box people. They may drive you crazy at times with their questions and suggestions, but we must learn to love them. The new world of work doesn't benefit from like thinking, color inside the lines, teammates hunkering down to plow through the work on their desks, doing everything the same way it has always been done. The progress that's possible these days, and mandatory if we want to remain in business, is progress that comes from breakthroughs and ahas, rather than dogged attention to the work ways of the past. We need to embrace a mindset that holds that disrupting the smooth flow of operations is good. And we need to embrace employees who continually ask uncomfortable questions about why things can't be done differently. People come in fascinating, oddly configured packages of talents. And the sooner we as leaders realize that the brilliance and spark that we are looking for can be found in the lumps and bumps, the better performing we and our organizations will be. So, what to do? Here are some suggested next steps that will guide you to leading your organizations. Here are some ideas for what to do starting right now, or at least tomorrow morning. First, read at least 2 books or attend 2 seminars in the next 6 months on the topics of organizational innovation and creativity, or organizational learning and knowledge management. For suggestions, look at the bibliography for this presentation. Second, in the next 6 months, visit 2 firms in your industry that are known for their creativity and innovation to learn how they do it. Next, start a discussion in the next month with a group of colleagues about how to enhance your creativity and learning. Design an action plan to apply one or more of the group's ideas. In the next 6 months, if you don't already have it, Begin development of a knowledge archive or yellow pages so that employees can learn from each other and build on what has already been achieved. And finally, this week, begin a conversation with one or more colleagues and/or employees about your organization's learning and innovation culture and your barriers to learning and innovation. Once you start such a conversation, then you can begin to work on removing those barriers and becoming more creative and innovative in everything you do. And I invite you all to leave your organizational methods and protocols of the past and embrace change through creativity and innovation. You will all become true leaders within your area of influence and will find unimaginable opportunities in the new world reality. Thank you.